We're here in the beautiful London with Peter Moricz. How are you doing, Peter?
Good, doing very well. Cold a little bit cooler temperature than we're used to, but it's good.
All right. For the wider public, can you tell what you're doing in the crypto space?
Yeah, right now at the moment they're working with a protocol out of Slovenia, who's using proof of authority for Nxxtech ID to use for all different kind of stages, and also helping out EU Family Fund for the OTC projects to make sure the due diligence to try to get as much cleaning up the space as possibly can, because there's a lot of bad element in the space like ICO was about a year ago. So very good.
We heard in the panel that one of the biggest hurdles is actually the KYC. Yeah, still. I mean.
Yeah, I mean the KYC ML, it's definitely one of the things I need to sort out. Also, proof of coins, proof of funds, chain analysis, which all cost money. The things are getting better and better at it. But the questions I was asking is how far can you go back to do this kind of chain analysis to make sure how many change the token was there before when you get it. I mean, if you do the same thing when you do the money in a bank and you trace back how many people who had that money beforehand, you're gonna come back somewhere who didn't have the right motive. So when is enough is enough, and I think we need a clear regulation on it, and also who gets involved in this space. So a lot of kids who are just have big eyes in the OTC market just start counting the money. There's a lot of figures flying around, and people just want to get a piece of the pie. And then and there's a lot of shady stuff going on besides that.
What is actually needed if you look at the regulator? More clear rules.
Definitely. I mean, that's the whole crypto space, the blockchain space, ICO space. Now the STOs are coming in there. We try to have some regulation because but the whole and listen, you cannot push the regulators too much. They're trying their best. This thing only came out last 2 years, the ICO market. So, you have to give them time, and also they need money. And so they need to get the money from the government. That's why the big challenges in America between SEC, CFTC, even the IRS, who's going to get able to look after the blockchain space.
Some say the CFTC. As the best papers.
Yes, but then the judge just came out about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, that the CFTC route for the CFTC, that's actually a commodity. Then we just had a ruling in Germany on that. So I understand there's supposed to be G20 have some kind of that's just for AML, but that goes through the whole globe, not just because otherwise just becoming like a tax that just jumping around where you should set up the company. Now Malta is the hot spot. Last year was Gibraltar. Where did the people gonna go next? Bermuda is also trying to be the hub. So Liechtenstein, correct, and there was an article yesterday that a lot of Swiss companies moving out of into Liechtenstein because the regulation is becoming more favorable over there too.
What do you see of the most dominant trends? We've seen last week's Tether is having problems as a stable coin. We see lots of introductions of other stable coins. Circle is moving into
right. So we have about 23 stable coins at the moment, and there's 57 waiting to come online. Right. So I think this last couple months, what was the major theme is stablecoin and STOs. Everybody wants to get into the STO space because it's regulated, but who's going to buy it? I heard about 2 billion worth of STOs wants to come online, so who's going to be the buyer at the other end of it? STO is supposed to be A-creditor investors, which is great in the West, but most of the things happen in Asia, and there's not too many A-creditor. There's no definition of what A-creditor investor in Asia besides Singapore and maybe Korea. So it's nice that people want to and you can see that people want to play by the rules, but the rules needs to be created much more for the digital age rather than something that was written in 1934 for growing trees in Florida. So.
New York Stock Exchange is listing these STOs. We've seen more. We have bucked, and so more institutional money is flowing into market. Do you think?
100%. There's definitely institutions looking to get into the space, and let's see how they can get involved. Fidelity was a major step to get into this space to make it more legitimate, and have
big news.
Big news, and have them have a runway on it. Some people like, okay, we know there's a big players in there, and BAC futures supposed to come on December. Yeah, so at that time, so it's coming around the corner. Now, what happens if the market sells off even more? Are the institutional investors still going to be there for that, or? Most of the Bitcoin's already mined. So 17, 18 million out there. I think there's about 3 or 4 million lost. So most of the Bitcoin that you need is out there to be used. So yeah, I think this the market is maturing, and you see these going to these conferences. There's much more suits than T-shirts. T-shirts are the techies. The suits are a little bit more interested. Of course, a lot of lawyers coming into this space who are also try to take something out of it, not just the people who are looking for a little basis points here and there on their OTC trades.
It's the good development. I mean, it's almost 10 years ago that Satoshi Nakamoto issued his white paper, decentralized, peer-to-peer. I mean, now we see Wall Street's coming back in, centralized money.
Right. I mean, okay. So 10 years, yes, the paper with them, but every other part of the Bitcoin or the blockchain has been around for a long time. What the Satoshi was able to put it is the double spending. To make that the double spending, but crypto has been around. I believe Estonia already had back in 1998 for land registry to put on data space. So a lot of things can be done, and you don't need blockchain for it, right? But we're able to Bitcoin with Satoshi, just able to do the double spending, to able to fix. But this market is still in the beginning, early stage, and what Ether was able to do is, besides using the smart contract, and Vitalik just said it 2 weeks ago, wish he never called it a smart contract, because it caused that much more, the speed everything's up, and much more people came online that he expected. Nobody expected this kind of ICO is going to take off so much. And now it's slowing down. It's not dead. It's going to become in a different form. When you raise $14 billion in 2 years on ICOs, it's people get attention, and maybe the wrong attention, but also you have a lot of smart people coming on there. And if you have a good ICO and something that is a good product, people are going to invest. Just last week, one of the professors from MIT raised $62 million for a protocol. So it's a good product. People are going to believe in you, but people are more cautious.
So the ICO market is not dead.
ICO is not dead, but it's it already raised 300 million. Its course is not going to compare to the billions of dollars has been raised, but the people are much more careful. And there's about 2,000 tokens out there. 2,000 tokens, 500 exchanges. This needs to be consolidated. Finally I see some ICOs start handing money back because they're not able to, if that's able to done in a proper way, in a good way, I think that go a good way to have a credibility of this whole space. Because then you say, okay, something doesn't go right, then you can always give the money back or the tokens.
Some of these ICOs actually have more Ether raised than their market cap. I mean, we've seen.
I would say when they raised the money, yes, but now that the market down 800 points, 800%, or 80%, sorry, when the market goes down 80%, I think you'll be surprised how much little less money those ICOs have. They're getting there. If they get in there last year when around 800,000, now it's about 200, below 200 versus the dollar. I think a lot of people never switch money out, never hedge the money, so they're sitting at that. When you thought you raise 15, 20 million, you have much more less money, and the overhead. And a lot of people say this is a scam, burning TikTok, and a lot of people, to get the MVP out there, to get this is, need to hire people, you need to, there's scams out there and people got burned, but there's also a lot of people work very hard to make their roadmap work, and I think a lot of those people don't get any credit for that. Listen, one of the company I work with in SurePal, or even Vibrate, those guys hired a lot of people, they work hard, they got, they travel a lot, so they cannot tell them, these guys are scammers when they're working their ass off and spend the time away from their family just to make sure they're at the events, that to get the word out. So it's a hard work when you're a startup, in which that's how you should look at ICOs. 9 out of 10 fails, right? I think there was a good article in TechCrunch how much of the big companies, startup companies out of the valley, they were failed. So you cannot say, oh, I'm invested money now, I should be whole, and are going to have a next Amazon come out, because it doesn't work like that. It takes a long time. Look at Airbnb, had 4 lunches before somebody took them seriously, right? So, but because you raised 18 million and not 2 million, it's a different story now, because, or 100 million or 50 million. So, you know, and people are much more cautious, but that should be, but also what ICO give to people is democratize investing in companies that you could never done in a dot-com bubble, because it was only for Silicon Valley and, you know, for bankers and this and that. And if you look at bankers, look at Snapchat, look at Blue Apron. They did the roadshow for them, they invested money, you know, they backed them, and they're still lost money on it. Are you going after the bankers and say, hey, where's my money? Where's the Snapchat guys? Where's my money? Because I invested you guys? That's not how it works.
All right. Last question, do you have any favorite cryptocurrencies or ICOs you can tell us about?
I'm not a big investor in the funds, but I do look at a couple of things, like I think OX, which because I think it's a very, very creative mindset. I think Steam is very good. The team what they have is incredible. So it's an all-star team of Silicon Valley teams together. I still believe in Ethereum, but you never know what's going to pop up out of there.
What do you think is the biggest scam? The ICO-market. I mean, some of them have raised billions.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to say. You know, I look at a couple of companies and I look at how much there was up there in the first place. When something was 400 and now it was 40, or they opened up at 6. You know, where you get these kind of valuations. You know, it's hard. You know, I cannot say someone is a scam. I mean, there's 2,000 out there. I can look at them and say, hey, should be up here, because that thing doesn't make sense. And that's why you have to do your homework. You know, it's not because it's like when you talk to people with stocks, don't listen to someone else and recommend your stock. Do your own homework. So I'm sorry, but I cannot give you any scams out there, because then also, you know, get someone in, you know, that maybe I don't know the whole story behind them, and maybe they'll say, hey, we're coming out in a year or 2 years. So.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your insights.
I hope I didn't talk too fast for you. No. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes.